Russian forces have the chance to press westward in the coming weeks, but they are unlikely to be able to capitalize on a brief window of opportunity to snatch more territory from Ukraine. On Thursday, the UK Defense Ministry said Ukraine was experiencing a spell of cold weather that would likely last for several weeks. The freezing conditions will harden the ground and make cross-country maneuvers easier, it said. Frozen ground makes using tanks and armored vehicles in operations much easier compared with muddy conditions and rainy weather. Ukraine's notorious muddy season, also known as the Rasputitsa, has complicated the fighting several times during nearly 2 years of war. Cold weather doesn't really make you happier, Ukraine's Major Viktor Tregobov told media back in October as the rainy, muddy season set in for the fall. If we're talking about combat readiness, autumn rains and winter cold changes everything and limits the offensive potential for both sides. Despite recent Russian advances in certain sectors of the front line, Moscow will likely fail to make the most of the more favorable weather conditions before a thaw in March, experts have suggested. After Ukrainian forces retreated to the northern flank of the Donetsk village of Marinka, southwest of the embattled town of Avdiivka, in late December, the Institute for the Study of War said the capture of the settlement was only a limited tactical gain for Russia. Moscow would only be able to capitalize on the gain if Russian forces have dramatically improved their ability to conduct rapid mechanized forward movement, which they show no signs of having done, the think tank said. Ukrainian forces have taken out more than 9 battalions worth of Russian soldiers since the new year, Kyiv said on Monday, in the latest indication of the human cost of the nearly 2-year-old war. Russia lost around 4,350 soldiers between January 1 and January 7th, according to Ukraine's Military Media Center, a platform run by the country's defense ministry and military. The count takes 500 soldiers to constitute a battalion. It is not clear whether this count refers to total Russian casualties, including those injured, but Kyiv described the troops as destroyed. The tally is less than the figure offered up by the General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces. Between January 2 and January 8, the General Staff said Russia had lost 5,160 soldiers. The figures put forward by Kyiv's General Staff on January 2 and January 8 covered the previous 24-hour periods. As of Monday, Ukraine said Russia had lost 365,170 troops. The Kremlin does not provide a running total of reported Ukrainian losses, but said on Monday that 820 Ukrainian soldiers had been taken out of action in the past day. It is very difficult to determine casualties in an ongoing conflict since both sides will try to keep the data secret and inflate the number of adversary casualties, Marina Miron, a postdoctoral researcher in the Department of War Studies at King's College London, UK, told media in May 2023. Western intelligence estimates put the total number of Russian casualties since February 2022 in excess of 300,000. Approximately 302,000 Russian military personnel have been killed or wounded, and tens of thousands more have already deserted since the start of the conflict. British Armed Forces Minister James Heappey told UK lawmakers in early November. The number of personnel killed serving in Russian private military companies, PMCs, is not clear, he said. Ukraine is trying to make life unlivable for Russian soldiers, ensuring there are no safe places for Moscow's troops. Daniel Rice, former special advisor to Ukraine's lead commander, General Valery Zaluzhny, told Newsweek in late December. Ukraine's wielding of cluster munitions and the targeting of Russian vessels with long-range Western weapons is contributing to the higher Russian casualty count, he said. Whole Russian units are being wiped out. On December 30th, the British Defense Ministry said the average number of Russian casualties sustained each day had risen by almost 300 per day throughout 2023 compared to the previous year. The increase in daily averages, as reported by the Ukrainian authorities, almost certainly reflects the degradation of Russia's forces, the UK government said. If Russia's casualty count stays the same throughout 2024, Moscow will have sustained more than 500,000 casualties in the war by 2025, the British Defense Ministry said. The previous month, the UK government said a spike in Russian losses in the last months of 2023 was largely down to Moscow's offensive on the Donetsk town of Avdiivka. The town, which has spent nearly a decade on the front lines between Kyiv and Russian-backed forces and Moscow's troops, has become the site of one of the bloodiest battles since Moscow launched its onslaught on the town in October 2023. Thousands of killed Russian soldiers. Nobody even took them away. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky told The Economist in an article published on January 1st, referring to the bitter fighting around Avdiivka. Dmytro Lazutkin, a spokesperson for Ukraine's 47th Brigade, previously told Newsweek that the brigade was deployed on the northern flank of Avdiivka, adding, "Defending the city is worthwhile as long as we exhaust the Russians."
Красава. Да.
Прием, передаю поле. Готов!
Огонь!